December 1968. Folsom Prison, California. 11:40 a.m. Johnny Cash stands on a makeshift stage, staring into a sea of inmate faces that don't blink, don't smile, don't pretend. The adrenaline pounds behind his eyes. He knows the math. This concert either saves his career or ends it for good. Columbia Records has made that clear. One last chance. No margin for error. Behind him, producer Bob Johnston grips the recording console too tightly. The tape is rolling. Whatever happens next will live forever. Cash hits the opening chords of Folsom Prison Blues. The room ignites, then it fractures. From the fourth row, a heavyset man rises, tattooed neck, a scar cutting across his right eye. Prisoner number 24601, convicted killer. Drunk. Someone slipped him homemade liquor past the guards. He starts shouting, tearing straight through the song. Guards move, batons halfway raised. One wrong second from violence. 400 men hold their breath. And then Johnny Cash does something no one, guards, prisoners, the label, or his own band, expects. He doesn't stop the tape. He doesn't call security. He doesn't back down. He looks straight at the man who could destroy everything and speaks. Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. August 1967, El Paso. The hotel hallway smells like hot carpet and cigarettes. Johnny Cash steps out of his room as if the door is heavy. His eyes are open, but not landing on anything. 72 hours without sleep, and the amphetamines have stopped feeling like power and started feeling like punishment. He pats his pockets for a show schedule, finds crumpled paper, can't read it. Somewhere in town, there's a stage with his name on it. In his head, there are other stages, tight, airless ones, where voices keep arguing with him. In the alley behind the hotel, he talks to shadows as if they're people. Saul Holiff finds him there. Saul has seen busted tours and broken nights, but this is different. Cash is down near 145 pounds on a 6.2 frame, suit hanging wrong, jaw working like he's chewing grit. When Saul says, "Johnny, we go on in an hour," Cash answers the air beside him. Saul steps to a payphone and calls the one person who can still reach past the noise. "June," he says when she picks up, voice flat with fear. "Either you come get him now, or next time I'm calling from a morgue." June Carter drives in and doesn't play nurse. She looks at Cash, hands trembling, eyes suspicious, and sees the same kind of ruin she grew up around. Her father's drinking taught her what pity buys. She says, "I'm taking him," then adds, to Cash, "not to a clinic." His stare hardens, expecting a trap. That night in Phoenix, she's the headliner. Cash sits backstage, sweating through black fabric, hearing the crowd and hating himself for needing it. June leans close. "If you're set on dying," she says, practical as a road manager, "do it under lights, not in some alley. At least make it honest." On stage, he tries. The band hits the turn, and the irony cuts. "Ring of Fire," her song, and his tongue refuses to cooperate. Words vanish mid-line. A few whistles slice the room. Cash grips the mic stand like it can steady him. June walks out, not as rescue, more like a challenge. "You want a show?" she fires at the hecklers. "Then watch." She sings his missing lines with steel, not sweetness, and the room follows her. Cash stands there, stunned, realizing she isn't holding him up. She's making him face the fall in public. Afterward, in the hotel, the noise drains away and leaves a harsh quiet. Cash sits on the bed, boots still on, shaking. For the first time in 2 years, tears show up without permission. June doesn't hug him. She sets an envelope on the table. It's a letter from her ex-husband, Edwin "Rip" Nix. The last line reads like a promise. You saved me. Now I'll save you. June flips it over. An obituary is taped there. Rip is already dead. Overdose, 3 months ago. I couldn't pull him back, June says, keeping her voice level because emotion won't change facts. Don't make me fail twice. Outside, America is loud with Vietnam and protest, and Nashville keeps selling polish while people start craving truth. Columbia is watching Cash's sales sink and circling the contract. But in that room, none of it is business. Cash feels the cage he built, bar by bar, pill by pill, and for the first time, he hears someone set a boundary and dare him to live. January 1968 comes without ceremony. No cameras, no applause. Johnny Cash steps out of a private clinic outside Memphis with 28 clean days behind him and no illusions about what that means. His hands are steadier, but his mind is sharp in a new, dangerous way. Clarity doesn't feel like relief yet. It feels like exposure. Waiting at home is a letter from Columbia Records. Polite, final. One more album. One chance to prove he's still worth the shelf space. If it fails, the contract ends quietly. No scandal, no comeback story, just disappearance. Producer Bob Johnston visits a week later with a safe plan. Studio time, controlled sound, Nashville professionals who won't ask questions. Cash listens, nods, then shakes his head. He says it evenly, not dramatic, almost tired. I don't want clean, I want real. Then he drops the idea that's been sitting in his chest for years. A live album, inside a prison. Johnston stares at him, checking pupils, tone, breath. Johnny, he says slowly, if this is a joke, it's not funny. Cash doesn't blink. He talks about the shows he's played since the late 50s, how inmates never pretend to like you, how they hear lies before the second verse. They know when you're broken, he says, and they don't ask you to hide it. Columbia hates it on contact. Executives call it irresponsible, dangerous, career suicide. Who wants to hear cheering criminals? Who ensures that? Who explains it to advertisers? Cash listens, says nothing, then tells Johnston, if they say no, that's fine. But this is the only record I'm making. By June, the refusals stack up. San Quentin says no. So does Folsom. 5 times. Cash drives to California anyway, unannounced, walks to the gate like a man with nothing left to negotiate. Guards escort him off the property before he finishes his sentence. As he's being turned away, one officer hesitates. Fred Johnson, mid-30s. Vietnam telegram folded deep in his wallet. His brother Tommy's funeral had Cash's voice echoing over the dirt. Fred asks for a day. 24 hours later, there's a condition. One meeting, private, with Glenn Sherwood, death row, double homicide, no reputation for mercy. If Sherwood says no, the door closes for good. The cell smells of disinfectant and metal. Sherwood sits on the bunk, letter from his mother in hand. She's cut him off. Final words. Cash doesn't preach. He talks about Starkville, Mississippi, 1965. 3 nights in a cell after getting caught with pills. The shame. The noise in his head. The lie that he was in control. Sherwood studies him, unimpressed. Why us? He asks. Why not a theater full of people who clap on cue? Cash answers without posing. Because you won't judge me for what I am. Silence stretches. 20 seconds that feel measured. Sherwood nods once. Do it, he says, and play Folsom Prison Blues. Slow. When Cash walks out, he knows it's agreed. Not by a system. By a man who understands cages. 11:17 a.m., January 13th, 1968. Backstage at Folsom Prison doesn't look like a backstage at all. It's a narrow utility room with cinder block walls, a folding table, and a smell of boiled coffee and disinfectant. Johnny Cash stands in front of a cracked mirror, tie loose in his hands. He tries to knot it and fails. His fingers don't obey. He isn't high. He hasn't been for 11 months. That almost makes it worse. There's nothing to blame the shaking on except fear. June Carter steps in close, takes his hands without ceremony. "If you fall," she says quietly, "we fall together. I'm walking out with you." Her grip is firm, not comforting. A promise, not reassurance. Outside, 450 inmates are seated in a cafeteria, stripped of anything that could be thrown. Guards line the walls, rifles on the towers above the yard. 2 microphones stand at the front. One reel-to-reel machine spins, already eating tape. Bob Johnston said it twice that morning. One chance. No edits. No do-overs. At 11:25, 5 minutes before downbeat, the warden receives word from Block D. Homemade liquor found during inspection. That means at least one man in the room may be drunk. Protocol says cancel. Liability says cancel faster. Cash hears the word shut it down and feels something cold slide into his stomach. He steps forward, voice low. "Give me half an hour. If it goes wrong, pull the plug yourself." The warden watches him, measuring risk against control, then nods once. The tape keeps rolling. 11:40. Third song. The opening lines of Folsom Prison Blues hit like a match. When Cash reaches the line about Reno, the reaction is raw and explosive. Not polite, not ironic. Real noise, full-bodied, almost violent. Then a chair scrapes. From the 4th row, a man stands. Charlie Banks, scar splitting his face. Knuckles marked "Born to Lose." He's swaying, eyes sharp despite the booze. "You're a fake," he shouts. "You never did time." Hands go to batons. A guard takes a step. Cash lifts one finger, not commanding, asking. He stops the band. The silence that follows is dangerous. 400 men hold their breath. Cash looks straight at Banks and speaks into the microphone, voice steady because it has nowhere else to go. "You're right," he says. "I never did real time. Longest stretch I sat was 3 days in Starkville for hauling pills." He lets that land, doesn't defend it. "But I know what it's like to build a cage and lock yourself inside it. I know what it feels like when everyone decides you're done. Finished. Not worth the trouble." He pauses again, eyes still on Banks. "So, this one's for you. And for anyone here who's been told they're nothing." Banks doesn't smile. He doesn't sit at first. Then slowly, he drops back into his chair. His jaw tightens. His eyes shine. The guards ease, just enough. In the front row, Glenn Sherwood nods once. Cash plays the song again, slower now. Each word weighs more. When it ends, there are 3 seconds of nothing. Then the room erupts. Not applause, release. Banks is on his feet, clapping until his palms burn. The tape keeps turning. 11:47 a.m. The applause thins out, leaving behind a low hum of breath and scraped shoes. Johnny Cash wipes sweat from his forehead and feels his pulse banging in his ears. Whatever line existed between control and chaos has already been crossed. He knows it. The warden knows it. There's no rewinding this room. Behind the equipment table, Bob Johnston keeps his hand near the recorder, eyes flicking between the meters and the guards. The warden leans in and murmurs, tight and controlled. "One more surprise, and we shut it down." Johnston doesn't answer. The reels keep spinning. Cash looks back at the band. Luther Perkins stares at him like he's waiting for a cue that makes sense. June watches from the side, reading Johnny's face before he speaks. And then he does something none of them expect. He sets the guitar down. "I want to try something," he says into the microphone, voice calm but stripped bare. "Might be a bad idea, but if one of you wants to come up here and tell us your story, just tell it. We'll listen." The room freezes. This isn't music anymore. This is risk without a cord to hide behind. A guard takes a step forward. June whispers, "Johnny," but stops herself. There's no pulling him back now. 15 seconds stretch until they feel intentional. Then a man rises near the back. Not Banks, not Sherwood. Thin frame, uneven walk. Daniel Morgan, 34, 15 years for armed robbery. His hands shake as he moves into the aisle. Guards block him automatically. Cash lifts his palm. "Let him through." Morgan walks slowly, favoring one leg. The inmates part, creating a narrow passage. Every footstep sounds too loud. When he reaches the stage, Cash offers his hand. Morgan doesn't take it. He stares at the floor. "No right words," Cash says softly, the mic catching everything. "Just say what's there." Morgan swallows. 10 seconds of silence. Then his voice comes out rough, scraped raw. "I had a daughter, Emmy, 8 years old when I came in." He pauses. "My wife wrote me last month. Leukemia. Emmy died January 3rd. The air drains from the room. "They wouldn't let me go to the funeral," he continues. "Said I was a risk. I robbed a bank to pay for her surgery years back. Never killed anyone. Just wanted her to live." His voice cracks. "Now I'm here, and she's in the ground." Cash doesn't move. His jaw tightens. Around the room, men look down at their hands. Even the guards avoid eye contact. June covers her face off stage. Cash places a hand on Morgan's shoulder. Not an embrace. "Just wait." "I can't fix this," he says. "But she knew you loved her. And that matters more than anything taken from you." He turns to the mic. "This one's for Emmy Morgan." No guitar, no count-in. Cash begins, "Were you there when they crucified my Lord?" Voice trembling but steady enough to carry. June joins on the second verse. Then a voice from the crowd. Another. Soon the room fills with uneven harmony. Broken voices, but honest ones. 12:35. The song fades. Morgan steps down without escort. Cash picks up his guitar, hands no longer shaking. "Let's play something fast," he says. The room laughs, relieved. Orange Blossom Special kicks in. The connection is sealed. 12:42 p.m. The concert has found its second wind. The air is warmer now, heavier, charged by something that didn't exist an hour earlier. Johnny Cash launches into Cocaine Blues, and the response is immediate. The inmates know every word. They don't sing politely. They shout, laugh, bark lines back at him. The song isn't entertainment here. It's testimony. A man waiting for execution talking fast because time is short. Cash feeds off it, but in the corner of his eye, he notices something that doesn't fit the rhythm. Near the exit to the cell blocks stands a young guard. Early 20s, maybe 25. He isn't watching the crowd. He isn't watching the band. He's staring straight ahead, jaw locked, face hollow. Cash recognizes that look instantly. It's the look of someone who's already rehearsed disappearing. The song ends. Cash takes a drink of water. Instead of counting in the next number, he leans into the mic. "There are things we don't talk about," he says, "like how the guards here are locked in too. Different bars, same walls. You spend more time here than at home, and you can't tell anyone what you see, because who's going to understand?" A ripple runs through the guards. Some stiffen. Others drop their eyes. Among the inmates, there's no laughter, just nods. The young guard's eyes glisten, just briefly. Hours later, after the last chord, after the equipment is packed, Cash is walking a concrete corridor when someone calls his name. The guard stands there, cap in his hands. "My name's Michael Thompson," he says. "Could I talk to you? Alone." They step into a small security room. Thompson closes the door. His voice shakes when he speaks. "3 weeks ago, after my shift, I took my father's gun, loaded it, put it in my mouth." He swallows. "Didn't pull the trigger because my 5-year-old yelled from the bedroom. Wanted me to read to him." Cash listens, doesn't interrupt. "When that man talked about his daughter today," Thompson says, "I saw my kid. If I'd pulled the trigger, that's how my son would remember me. As someone who didn't come back." Cash nods slowly. Then he tells Thompson about a cave in Tennessee, about pills and a bottle, about June standing in front of him and saying, "Look at me and tell me I don't matter." No speeches, no advice. Just truth, offered carefully. Back on stage earlier, 12:15, the memory folds in. Cash had paused before the final set. "There's a man I want to thank," he'd said. "Glenn Sherwood." The room had shifted. Everyone knew the name. Death row. 47 days left. "He could have said no," Cash continued. "He didn't." Then Cash played Greystone Chapel, Sherwood's song. Words written in a cell, sung now to 450 men. Sherwood listened, tears running unchecked. He didn't move to wipe them away. 13:45. The show ends. Cash steps off stage shaking, spent. June holds him. Bob Johnston watches the tape reels stop and wonders what they just captured. As they leave, inmates crowd the bars, calling out. Cash pauses at Sherwood's cell. "Thank you," he says. Sherwood nods once. "Keep singing," he replies, "for the ones who can't." January 15th, 1968, New York City. 52 floors above the street, the offices of Columbia Records are quiet in the way money prefers. Thick carpet, glass walls, men who decide outcomes without raising their voices. Bob Johnston places a reel of tape on the table like evidence. 7 executives sit across from him. Suits, cufflinks, practiced neutrality. Clive Davis watches without expression, cigar resting untouched. Johnston doesn't pitch. He presses play. The room fills with noise first. Metal chairs, distant shouts, the hollow acoustics of a prison cafeteria. Then a voice cuts through it. "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Laughter, wild, unfiltered. Then the opening of Folsom Prison Blues. 8 minutes pass. No one interrupts. When the reel stops, Howard Roberts clears his throat. The guitar drifts out of tune. The crowd bleeds into the vocal. "This isn't a studio record." "That's the point," Johnston says. "People are tired of perfection that means nothing." "Reality doesn't sell," Davis replies calmly. Johnston switches reels. The room hears Daniel Morgan's voice break while talking about his daughter. Silence follows. A hymn rises, cracked and human. When it ends, Larry Jenkins removes his glasses. "We can't release this. Radio won't touch it." Johnston stands, begins gathering the tapes. "Then I'll take it somewhere else." "Wait," Davis says. "Give me the weekend." Saturday night, Connecticut. Davis listens alone, expensive speakers turned low, whiskey untouched. He doesn't skip tracks. When the tape runs out, he sits in silence for 5 minutes. At 2:30 a.m., he calls Johnston. We release it, all of it. Monday brings arguments, votes split. Davis makes it personal. "If this fails, it's on me." The motion passes, 4-3. In March, Cash tours the Midwest, unsure if any of it mattered. In Omaha, a letter waits. Folsom Prison. Glenn Sherwood. Cash reads it 3 times. The words about the appeal, about the guard whose life turned. He folds the letter carefully and keeps it close. Calls Johnston. Put Greystone Chapel last. May. Critics gather in Nashville. Some lean forward, some lean back. Ralph Gleason writes one sentence that spreads quietly. A week before release, Cash sits on his porch with June. The sky burns orange. He admits the fear isn't failure. It's having offered hope. June squeezes his hand, says nothing. The tape has already spoken. June 7th, 1968. At Folsom Prison, reaches the stores quietly. No banner headlines, no radio blitz. 12,000 copies move in the first week. Respectable, nothing more. Johnny Cash sleeps badly, wakes early, checks the phone too often. Columbia stays cautious. Then the numbers shift. Week 2, 47,000. Week 3, over 100,000. By the end of the month, the presses can't keep up. It isn't radio driving it. It's people. Word passed hand to hand, voice to voice. In a year already cracked open by Vietnam, riots, assassinations, the country hears something that doesn't smooth the edges. It listens because it feels recognized. On July 4th, Clive Davis calls. "Factories are running non-stop," he says. "This thing has legs." Cash thanks him, hangs up, and sits quietly. Celebration doesn't come naturally yet. Letters do. They arrive by the hundreds. Prisons, army bases, small towns. One from Vietnam stops him cold. A 19-year-old soldier writes about listening to the album in a trench, about crying without shame, about hearing the line, "You are not what they call you," and believing it for the first time. Cash answers every letter he can, by hand. June watches him late one night, surrounded by envelopes. "You don't owe them all," she says. He nods, keeps writing anyway. By December, the album tops the country chart and climbs into the mainstream. Gold records appear. Columbia throws a party in New York. Cameras flash. Cash slips onto a balcony alone. Bob Johnston finds him there. "I keep thinking about Glenn," Cash says. "I'm here. He's still inside." January 1969. A lawyer calls from California. Glenn Sherwood's sentence has been commuted to life. The attention matters. The music mattered. Cash hangs up and sits down hard. June understands without explanation. A month later, Cash returns to Folsom. No band, no microphones, just a visit. Sherwood looks older, thinner, alive. "You made them see us," Sherwood says. Cash shakes his head. "You already did that. I just carried it out." Spring brings the Grammys. The album doesn't win the big prize, but Cash steps up for his award and speaks plainly. He gives it away. To inmates, to a songwriter behind bars, to anyone who's been unseen. The room listens. Years pass. The record sells millions. Morgan walks free and stays clean. The guard leaves corrections and starts over. Cash keeps playing prisons, not for image, not for nostalgia. Because it feels necessary. 1994. An interviewer asks what that day meant. Cash thinks, then answers slowly. "I went in there trying to prove something. I came out understanding something else. That dignity doesn't disappear just because the world decides you're done." He looks into the camera. "I wasn't their savior. I just paid attention." The tape clicks. Silence. Then the train rhythm starts again.